And away we go. All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Last Newsdesk on the Left. And I am your host, Mac Paladin. We have Adam in the house.
Strap in. It's going to be heavy this week.
Indeed. Kevin's here.
Hello.
Petty fans chilling in the corner.
The walls have eyes.
And the hills have ears. Speaking of the hills have ears, the Galax is also here.
That's a kind of here, yes.
Is it H-E-A-R or H-E-R-E?
Look into your heart.
What if you don't have one because you're a ginger?
Listen, fuck.
You still have a heart, you just don't have a soul. There's a
Fair.
difference.
Have you not seen a picture of
You
me?
have a heart, you just don't have a soul. There's a
Fair.
difference.
Do-
Well, no, I
Have you
just
not
okay.
seen a pic-
The joke is gingers don't have souls, not gingers don't have hearts.
Oh my god. Yeah. So
I mean,
we have a show this week. I guess.
It's going to be a very, very, very heavy one.
we definitely have a show. It's just
A certain bunch of someones in the media lately have been doing things, and Adam is here to bring us the skinny on that.
Well, I mean, okay. I guess in case you've been under a rock, but right. So the latest Dave Chappelle stand-up special got released a few days back. And if you know anything about Dave Chappelle, since 2016, you know he's
But
Well, he's been increasingly transphobic, and the closer here seems to be the tipping point. Mainly because, well, quite frankly, it wasn't even a joke. I can't say it was a transphobic joke. It was a transphobic rant.
it was a bit. Yeah.
You know, he just flat out said he's on Team Turf. Like,
He's trying to be, funny, but at the same time, it's like,
it's a lot of old men yelling at clouds mixed in with bigotry.
Actually, what it's actually the crux of that whole thing with him, with this, is not just the transphobia. It's something a little bit more deeper and a little bit more insensitive, really.
Well,
And it's the concept of him trying to separate black people from gay people with the whole bit about,
yes,
yeah,
yes, I've heard generally described as the oppression Olympics.
pretty much that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's that combined with the whole transphobia thing that has been pretty increasing as part of his bit, and largely it's been increasing because when he was transphobic the first time, trans people went, "Excuse me," and then Dave Chappelle, "Oh, I got something here that's getting me attention, so I'm going to just keep going and going and going," and it makes him look weak.
He pulled on a thread. He thought
Yes,
he found a little nugget, a chunk, if you will, and these are all comedy terms. These are all comedy terms.
And he kept pulling the thread until his entire ass was out.
Yep.
So,
and he continues to pull that thread.
well,
Even
okay.
though he does not
This is what happens. This is what happens when people, and this is not ageism. This is a mentality, not a specific age group. People don't automatically become quote unquote old men just because they pass a certain age.
Yeah. There's certain mentalities of
right. There's
people.
there's a certain mentality that just wants to entrench itself in the past. And it's like, well, it used to be okay. It's like, yeah, well, a lot of things used to be okay. That doesn't make them right.
Also, there's an asterisk on that okay, which is
right.
with the people whose opinions have been recorded as having mattered at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the real question is, was it ever really okay? And the answer is no. It was never really okay. It was merely accepted. People just let it go, and that is no longer the case.
Yeah, people didn't bother standing up, or maybe they did, but they were drowned out.
Or like it was just not even considered because the voices were so invisible. Like,
Yes.
just a lot of vadering here over the various causes of this, but they are, at the end of the day, immaterial to very real harm, and that gets to deeper issues because so this is not just become a treatise on, let's say, freedom or cancel culture, which does not fucking exist.
It does not exist.
Or rather, it exists, but this is why I call this canceling down. The person who got canceled, at least initially, wasn't Dave Chappelle. Oh no, like Dave Chappelle's quite the opposite. Like, even putting aside his, his now the fucking predictable comedians ranting about cancel culture, like he's far from the only one to bring that card up.
I mean, let's bring it all into focus in the last monologue for Real Time with Bill Maher. Bill Maher decided to stick his ass out again.
He does that. He does that a lot. Like,
he does that, and HBO recently gave him extension, even though nobody likes him anymore. But hey, you know what?
But
whatever.
So, what has exacerbated the issue this time around is a trans employee of Netflix spoke out publicly about the special, spoke out against Dave Chappelle, and spoke out against their employer. And they got retaliated against. The specific commentary was you can't carbon offset bigotry because Netflix was making a big deal about they support the queer community, all their program, yada yada yada, while still defending Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
And this is now what the central come about. It's not just Dave Chappelle's bigotry versus an even more marginalized community than what he belongs to. It's now Netflix has decided to make a choice, and
to vehemently defend this stuff in a way that is completely flabbergasting.
No, it's not.
It's not, well, it is, and it isn't at the same time. I mean,
I will say it's completely. I completely expected this because sometimes the leftists do have valid points. One of those are corporations are not your friend unless you make them a lot of money, because that's what this is all really about. It's because Dave Chappelle is a huge draw for Netflix. Like they flat out touted his drawing ability while defending him.
Of course, the first defense from Netflix on this, there's a new one out tonight.
Yeah,
that is more of the flabbergastic variety. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, but that's what this has become. That's what this has become now. It's now about you've made a choice, and it's also that old adage about free speech that people bring up in terms of like private companies and all that. Like free speech means you can say what you want, but doesn't free you from consequences. And
that's one thing people on the right don't seem to understand.
I guess the question is, does Netflix is Netflix gonna die on this hill, or are they gonna become the parlor of streaming services? Really?
Don't think they'll be that specifically. It's just a don't give a damn.
Well, no. Here's the thing. It's past that point now. This is snowballing more and more. Because, like I said, they made a specific choice.
Yep.
Problem is, this is a either or situation. You cannot double down on the big dollar and also try to double down, try to court the queer dollar. Okay? It doesn't work there. This is the
dollar, yes.
Yeah, this is the exact thing a lot of leftists on social media complain about. This is becoming the fucking definition of performative action or performative inclusion.
It's trying to compartmentalize it like as if it were merely a category on their service, and that's what makes it even worse. It's like. Does anybody know why we have Columbus Day in America?
Yes.
I remember in school there was practically a mythology around the fucking.
Well, there's a simple. But does anybody know why we teach that? It's really awful. It's really awful.
I saw
it.
It's the whole mass lynching of Italians in New Orleans. In 1930,
over a crime, it was in the 1890s.
It was in the 1890s, okay.
Yeah, it was during President Rutherford B. Hayes' presidency, and a bunch of Italian Americans were lynched for a crime they were accused of but did not commit, and there was riots all over the country. And instead of actually taking any real action at the federal level, President Rutherford B. Hayes decided that he was going to give Italian Americans a national holiday. So rather than banning lynching or, making any kind of federal attempt to prosecute the offenders who, murdered these men, he gave Italian Americans a holiday over somebody that Italians...
Wait, wasn't the holiday start? Didn't the holiday kick in the 20s, 30s?
I read up on this, and apparently it was enacted by executive order per President Rutherford B. Hayes over this incident. As far as I know, it was President Rutherford B. Hayes.
I read it started in 1934. So
that's probably when Congress made it a national holiday.
Oh yeah, okay. That's probably it then, but this is a situation where we have to say, two wrongs do not make a right.
Yeah.
Like,
but that was...
you had a mass lynching of Italian Americans, but the answer to that is not to base a holiday off of a guy who, you could argue committed genocide in the Caribbean.
Certainly, he did a lot of fucked up stuff and was not a good person.
Right.
He enslaved, he raped, he brought diseases, he killed people.
Anyway, Kevin, you said there was an update to this whole thing, so...
Yeah.
Yes. So, the point man for Netflix and its response to all of this has been the co-CEO of
President Benjamin Harrison, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Originally declared it as a one-time celebration.
It's a little known fact that the B in Rutherford B. Hayes actually stands for Benjamin Harrison.
Yeah, obviously. let me get some accurate information here. Yeah, it was started as a one-time celebration in response to the lynching in New Orleans, where they killed 11 Italian immigrants. So everything about it is fucked up. Everything about the whole holiday is fucked up from its inception to its actual codification by President Lyndon Johnson in 1968.
Okay. Anyway, but back to the thing here. The point man for the response to Chappelle's transphobia and what have you has been the co-CEO Ted Sarandos, who the first time basically, pretty much said, get over it. You got to accept, stuff like this because our members like it, so therefore it doesn't matter. That was the first response. Tonight or today, or actually it was apparently Monday, but we're learning about it tonight. Ted sent another email, internal email to employees of the company, pretty much once again noting, you got to accept things that you disagree with, and then tonight he doubles down even further with this. While some employees disagree, we have a strong belief that content on screen doesn't directly translate to real world harm. The strong and says
Holy
that
shit.
and he says to support this, violence on screen has grown hugely over the last 30 years, especially with first-party shooter games, and yet violent crime has fallen significantly in many countries. Adults can watch violence, assault, and abuse, or enjoy shocking stand-up comedy without causing them to harm others. Let me note for you, ladies and gentlemen, that this is the same platform that we're talking about here that last year released a documentary noting the real world harm to trans people from the on-screen representation or lack thereof of trans people over the course of a 100-year period. The documentary was called Disclosure and featured actual trans people talking about how they were treated like garbage from people who saw, how trans people have been represented on screen for over a century.
Yep.
And here's their CEO saying this week, because of the fact that, we haven't seen violent crime rise up because of first-party shooter games, that, there is that content on screen doesn't directly translate to real-world harm.
I think this is particularly tone deaf coming from the same organization that leaned heavily into the strike zone of marketing a movie that was specifically a documentary that was specifically designed to expose the problematic nature of child pageantry as something that pedophiles could fob their knob to. And we're talking about cuties. I mean, it's like, do you guys have any fucking idea how much power you wield and how much damage that you do with the bullshit that you peddle?
Yeah, but they don't care.
And it's it's the position of the moment. It's the position of the moment. The internet has a forever memory until it doesn't. Apparently, as far as Netflix is concerned.
Yeah, I mean,
the internet is forever until it isn't.
Yeah. It's like
that. Oh, you see, that problem with that is that was what, 2017, yeah, 2018. We've evolved since then into something more terrible.
It's like,
look, a distraction.
It's like, yeah. But Glad is out tonight, basically saying, guys, there's a reason why we exist here.
Yeah. So let's talk consequences, because no, people are not sitting down this time for all of this.
Well, they're not going to be sitting down, but nothing is going to come from this. I hate to say, because
I can already say that things are already coming from this. No, you're wrong there, because I've already seen one trans director is calling for a boycott of Netflix, but more importantly, there is going to be a trans walkout and boycott on October 20th.
That better happen now with this statement. Jesus,
it was already in the works.
Well, it was already in the works. It was already in the works, but you didn't really know how big it would be. But this statement, oh my God! If there's not a mass walkout,
that isn't even the worst thing they did. Wasn't even the worst thing they did. Going back to the trans employee, she was retaliated against, and 2 others. Like, not fired. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
Not fired, but they were suspended for attending a meeting that they weren't supposed to, which was technically true, but if you actually believe that was the reason that they were suspended for, I have a bridge to sell you.
I'm living right on the beach as we speak. I got some oceanfront property you might be interested in.
It's like
From my house, you can see the sea.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I know like the one trans lady who did speak out has been reinstated because we found out about it. That's how this shit goes. When we find out about this shit, they'll usually reverse course. Which also shows you that that whole meeting thing was bullshit in and of itself.
Yeah, especially considering how quick it was. So, yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, these statements are bad, but no, the worst was the fucking the attempting of retaliation. That's why I called this episode "Canceling Downward," because that's what Netflix tried to do here. That's how cancel culture actually works. It's not the very popular comedian who has a lot of clicks who gets canceled. It's the marginalized employee getting even more marginalized.
Yeah, when big successful people do get quote unquote canceled sometimes, what that usually means is they get in trouble and people don't like them for a few months.
Yeah, sometimes they will lose their job or their position, but not often. And I don't think anyone is really expecting Dave Chappelle to lose his Netflix deal over this.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, most people who have allegedly been canceled have found great success in martyrdom.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I can't believe how badly I've been canceled, says conservative comedian in new all access pay-per-view special.
Yeah, in new $50 million deal.
Yeah.
As I mean, I'm crying these crocodile tears as I sign this new $100 million 10-year contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I should note that apparently this Netflix special is the conclusion of this Netflix deal, which is why it's called The Closer. But yeah, I mean, the other night he apparently is shilling a new documentary on cancel culture, which does not exist. And he sold out the Hollywood Bowl, and he did his bit there, and said, "If this is what cancel feels like, I like it." So whatever.
I mean, I think it's a reasonable assumption that Netflix is going to try and re-sign with Dave Chappelle.
Well, I mean, and that statement alone tells you that he's nod-winking the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people keep saying, "Oh, that's crazy." He's it's like my old boss used to say, "Crazy like a fox." He knows goddamn well what he's doing.
Yep.
And whether or not he actually believes this stuff, that's the worst part about it is that it feels cynical.
Oh, of course. It feels cynical because it is cynical.
At least J.K. Rowling, we can understand that she actually believes the bullshit she says. But Dave, come on. Dave knows full fucking well that he's being an agent provocateur, and he's going to fall on the wrong side of history for this.
I mean, he apparently did an entire story about a trans friend of his, and yet he buffered that up and clouded that up with the transphobic shit.
I mean, that really falls flat. Like if I said, I can't be racist because I have a black friend. A
lot of people are fine with falling on the wrong side of history as long as their landing is cushioned by bags of money.
Yes.
Yeah, and Dave knows this quite well, considering he's doing stand-up comedy events with Joe Rogan. So.
Ugh.
I mean, when you're on a stage on a bill with that guy, you know what you're doing. I'm sorry, you know what you're doing.
Hey, maybe they could all go on tour together with Bill Maher.
Yeah.
But, why not?
Yeah, but what I'll note here is the people who are not going to buy this swill ever are queer people, because they know, they fucking know when you're being sincere and when you're being shit. Because
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, Adam. I mean, we do have log cabin Republicans, so.
And can I just note for the record that I'm a little uncomfortable with that word, considering that this past week it's been revealed that that's actually still used as a slur in some corners.
What?
The Q word.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it is part of the. It is part of
Yeah,
the
I know.
spectrum. It is part of the part.
Well, I know, but it's still a slur in some corners, and I'm uncomfortable with that word myself. So.
But
I'll just take that for the record. It's a personal thing. I'm not trying to force my thing on everybody. I'm just saying myself. I'm uncomfortable with that term. I know people use it. I know it's a terminology, but it's also a slur. And
I mean, it is also a legitimate word in the alpha in the LGBTQIA plus spectrum.
I
Kevin,
understand
for
that.
people who don't necessarily conform to a specific identity or gender, they just know themselves to be not straight.
Right. I understand that, and I'm not suggesting that if you are comfortable with that term that you should use the term. I'm just saying that I personally am uncomfortable with it because it has been used in a slur context.
So noted
I
all right. So noted for the record.
Just note that I'm just noting that for the
Yes.
record. I
So
don't.
so noted for the record. Let's not turn this into a thing.
Yeah.
You're not wrong, but I think most words that have been used that are used to describe that community, the LGBTQ community, have been used as slurs by someone at some point.
The term has been somewhat reclaimed by the community, just for the record. But
yeah,
I know.
just reclamation doesn't affect everyone equally.
Hey.
Right. I just want to state that for the record and.
All right.
Just for further reference. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway. So, this is something that's, at least in the immediacy, not going to go away. Like, how big it will snowball is hard to chart at this particular moment in time, but,
we bookmark this.
Yeah, it's like I said, there is a walkout and a boycott planned, and I think the deeper conversation is going to come, about LGBT people, still doing business with Netflix. Like,
especially now.
That being said, it's not the necessarily easiest choice to make. Like, because
it's unfortunate because they're one of the few streaming channels out there that actually has a dedicated LGBT plus section of their programming that they actually bother to advertise on. And this is one of the things, we talk about late stage capitalism, we talk about corporations and their non-personhood and all of that stuff. It's like these things are not monoliths, and they are beholden to absolutely no morality and ethics whatsoever beyond acquiring wealth for their stockholders. And that's ultimately what it is. And some of their stockholders are terrible people, and some of their stockholders are good people. And this is not, some kind of President Trump false equivalency at Charlottesville. This is literally a thing. Corporations are amoral entities that are beholden to the almighty dollar. They have no other obligation than that. And a lot of people try to say, well, they should have a responsibility to the environment, they should do this and they should do that. It's like, well, a lot of people should do a lot of things. Unfortunately, that's not the intended purpose of a corporation. The intended purpose of a corporation is to bring otherwise inaccessible assets together in order to accomplish larger things, and they're not always good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically, you should do all of these things, but you don't have to do all of these things, and the system itself encourages you to not do
Right.
all of these things.
Well, it's certainly not an obligation under corporatism.
No,
It's just that's
No,
the
it's
nature
not.
of the beast. If you choose to be an ethical corporation, great. And if you don't,
It's a PR.
if you don't, you have to trust. You have to, here's that little sliver of libertarianism popping in there. You have to quote unquote trust the market to affect change, because, I mean,
Nah.
you can try to legislate it away. But we've seen how that works.
Oh yeah, what could be legislated here? That's even worse,
Right.
Because first of all, never would stand a 1A test. I know there are some people out there who wish that the government could do something about this, but
Unfortunately, that directly would fall into a First Amendment issue because
Right.
It's Congress cannot for strict speech.
They provide arts and entertainment. Ergo, it is a First Amendment issue.
Yep. Unfortunately.
so
I mean, if it would be, and to be honest with you, it's like there's a lot of First Amendment issues here. Their silencing of their employees, a First Amendment issue here. They're using their considerable influence to shut down a marginalized group. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
those aren't
Have shut them down at least.
those aren't actually First Amendment issues because what the First Amendment applies to is the government.
That's
Right,
true.
exactly.
That's true.
That is the purpose of the First Amendment. It's the government. The government can't tell Netflix that they can't air Dave Chappelle specials because of anything.
And they also can't. Well, it's like then you call into question though federal regulations prohibiting discrimination based on race, color, creed, sexual orientation, all that stuff.
That's a separate issue though. That's not a 1A issue necessarily. That's a Title 9. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I think it is Title 9. You're right.
Title 9.
We get some cross purposes here, though, when somebody speaks out against the company for their stances on something, and then they get fired. You get some interesting cross purposes there.
But anyway, getting back to what I'm trying to articulate here in terms of long-term effects, we don't know yet, but it could be. We could see a mass exodus of LGBT, not just like producers, but actors. The whole gamut of creative people and employees at Netflix leaving. Although I suppose it's a question, where do they go? Because it's not like the rest of the streaming world is more friendly to.
They're just quieter about it.
Yeah, because the thing about the entertainment industry is there's one market in particular that right now is going all the way anti-LGBT right now, and the entertainment industry wants the money from that market, and they kind of cannot offend that market.
Like, not
and
the
we
only.
know what that market is.
I'm like, not the market they're most afraid of offending, if I'm being frank. Like, that's the Chinese market. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
yeah. But
And
I mean,
they're out here saying that they can't have men looking effeminate and stuff like that. So
yeah, I know that they've been tightening the controls on that. Like,
yep. So and the entertainment industry wants that sweet yuan. So
and this is ultimately why the First Amendment is a thing in the first place. I know it's you want the government to do things for you, but that's usually not how that works. Like,
Nope, unfortunately.
but we'll probably revisit this particular kerfuffle.
At a later date. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, should it snowball into a larger movement, let's say. But
Yeah.
there are other things going on in the world. Not too many things that we haven't touched upon because, we've avoided the financial disasters for now. The infrastructure bill is still being debated upon, let's say.
It would be nice if we had an agreement to deal with a debt limit for like more than a year, or like at least a year. But
So I'm like, kind of need to have.
Although technically we don't even know if they are, considering that apparently a certain someone has decided she wants to go to London and Paris.
I'm like,
for some money, apparently, which is strange.
It's not so strange when you know how much campaigning for funding.
Well, I get she needs freaking campaign cash. I get it, but freaking Europe, like
something foreign agents, something. Yeah.
It doesn't sound right. I mean, if you were getting donors in America, whatever. That was a completely separate argument, and it also looks bad. But it's typical. Freaking London and Paris. You're a senator.
We'll get to her another week, should it be appropriate. But the person I'm talking about is Weymouth. Senate Budgetary.
Weymouth.
Weymouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he announced his retirement today. Like, by far the highest profile Dem to announce. Like, not immediately, just not running for re-election. There doesn't seem to be any particular rationale or larger discourse around it, because it's not following a wave of other high-profile Dems.
Right.
Which is good, because, when you see a lot of high-profile members of a party retiring, that's usually an indication of where they think the next election is going to go.
Oh, you mean like the Republicans?
Right. We're not, this isn't like the 20th Republican retiring 2018. Sometimes people just want to move on for whatever reason.
I guess there could be an argument made for the fact that the lack of unity right now in the Democratic Party could be tedious to some who are not on board with the whole idea of responsible governance. But
well, I mean, just keep in mind this is what happens when you actually have a chance to pass stuff. I'll also point to like Republican attempts to do anything during like the 2 years or so that they had control of Congress. Like, you want to talk about fucking disorganized. The only thing that they got was a tax bill, and that barely passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, getting all your ducks in a row, in actuality, is hard. I've said this before, and I will say it again. It's like, it's not just because different people want different things, and because the margins are so theirs is razor thin as they could be right now without actually losing the majority. Like, so everyone has leverage. And everyone's not afraid to use that leverage. It's the question of whose leverage is stronger. And thus far, from what I've been hearing on the actual negotiations, like, here's a report from October 12th about Pelosi. She is disappointed that the House is not moving ahead with a $3.5 trillion package. Promises a smaller package will be transformative, and reiterates key decisions need to be made in the next few days.
Well, she also came out in favor of this absolutely absurd IRS reporting thing about the $600. Did you hear about this?
No,
So
but
she included in the original $3.5 trillion package, and she doubled down on this recently, like wailing about tax evasion and blah blah blah. There was a couple of lines in there about requiring banks to report any movement of money above $600 per year. Like literally, my rent for 1 month would be 1.5 times that amount. And she wants the banks to just start sending all of this data to the IRS so they can, quote unquote, weed out tax evasion. And I'm like, so my parents give me $500 so that I can get through the next month or so because I'm falling behind. And now she wants that, she wants that reported and taxed. Fuck you.
I'll say, given that I haven't heard anything about this is clearly a thing that went nowhere and liked it.
It was on Newsweek on my start page. They were talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm really doubting this thing because Newsweek has become a right-wing source. It got bought out.
Oh, really?
A few.
I think it was Newsweek. I don't recall exactly off the top of my head, but it came up, and I was like, huh.
Like I said, I haven't heard anything about it. It may be a thing that happened, but
I mean, when you're talking about a bill this large, there's bound to be some things built into it. I mean, it's like this could have been yet another opportunity for them to revisit the Orphan Works Act or some other asinine thing that they've been digging up as a chestnut over the last decade and a half.
Yeah. No, but that doesn't seem to be being pushed by anyone else or whatever. It doesn't seem to be any sort of actual bone of contention. It's more, what's going on with the infrastructure bill right now is it's being downsized, and the question is how does that get handled? And a thing that popped up on Twitter today is what should be done is less things but permanence. Because, if you have more things but they're like 10 years, then they're in danger. Because, the Brady bill was brought up in relation to this. And it's a really good example. Because if you don't remember what the Brady bill was, that was the assault weapons ban that got passed in the mid-90s. But one of the providers...
Okay, this came out today, October 13th. Janet Yellen argues $600 IRS reporting requirement would stifle small businesses. The $600 IRS reporting requirement, Pelosi $600 IRS reporting threshold subject to, what does the rest of this article say, the Washington Times, subject to negotiation, was talking about the dollar amount not being relevant, and they're saying it's performative. Well, banks have to report. Let's see. Snopes says that it's a mixture of truth and falsehood. So the American Families Plan has a reporting requirement for banks that has infuriated some.
Right. Okay, so, because I thought that was sounding a little odd, because I'm like, no, this isn't the thing I heard about in relation to the infrastructure or the reconciliation package. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying here, in relation to things being temporary, the Brady bill passed in 1994, but had a 10-year window. And the thinking on the Democratic side of the things was, this thing would be so popular that no one would dare let it expire. Or they would have the ability to not let it expire. 2004 rolls around. Turns out Republicans are in charge of the whole thing. So, it got sunsetted. and nobody really batted an eye about it. And that was the start of our modern day gun crisis. So it's probably best to get these things in stone, because this is a thought process is predicated on certain politicians having shame and regret. And I think we've seen enough on the Republican side of the field to know these are not words or concepts that they really understand or comprehend or are interested in comprehending. So, yeah, I'm definitely on team more, less things, but permanent. Anyway, first we should move ahead to entertainment news.
Are you not entertained? I put a link in the chat to the Snopes on the $600 reporting thing, just so that way people have an idea of the perspective of both sides.
Right. Right. Anyway, so this week in entertainment news, more gayness, because
that's a loaded phrase.
Well, it's because Superman, the current Superman, who is not
Superman Junior.
Yeah, I think he's actually got the mantle of Superman. Like, fucking comics continuity.
Yeah,
he's
still the Junior Superman.
Okay, he's bisexual. We learned this on National Coming Out Day. He kissed another boy, like. And of course, people are up in arms about it. Like, apparently, we had to hear from Dean Cain because
of course,
because
that guy's super.
He's disappointed in his fictional future son from a different continuity and medium. It's completely irrelevant.
There is so much to not give a fuck about Dean Cain about.
What is to give a fuck about him? Why the fuck does anyone give a shit what Dean Cain thinks?
Because he played Superman once.
Back in the 90s, it seems like an entire lifetime ago.
Yeah. It's like, hint, nobody gives a shit about what Dean Cain thinks. And I don't care if people actually do, I'm sticking with this statement.
Don't at me.
If they do,
don't at me, bro.
Wrong.
Don't.
Yeah.
It's like, even if you have opinions on this subject, I guarantee you're wrong.
Well, it's more, I don't fucking care. Because it's Dean fucking Cain. Like,
I believe I said something like that recently on Twitter, or no, I said it in a video. I said I don't care if my reinterpretation of the pronunciation is incorrect. You're wrong.
Anyway,
I don't care if that's the official company line on pronunciation. You're wrong. Don't at me.
Anyway. More or less. But I suppose our, how do I put this, main event is, well, the fall season of anime is almost fully upon us. There are some high-profile stragglers, but I think it's safe to say that the new season has started. And let's see, it's being led by the likes of the second season of Demon Slayer, which is causing some contention, but I knew they were going to do something like this because there was no... Because, okay, if you haven't heard, the Season 2 of Demon Slayer is starting with the Mugen Train arc, which is the arc they used for the movie. I'm like,
yes, fair. That is something that technically most of the fans have already seen. But on the other hand, for those 5 people who didn't get out to the movie theater or whatever, it's still a canon part of the story, and people who did not see it might otherwise be somewhat confused.
And now you know why so many shonen franchises over the
non-canon movies, yeah.
But you want to know what changed the game? Fucking Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Super had 2 canon movies And then when they decided to move to a full series, they had to make those movies part of those series, or not specifically those movies, because they actually did new animation, which wasn't nearly as good.
Yeah, I basically like to call it the revised and extended arcs.
So
Yeah.
the Battlestar Galactica effect.
More or less. Like,
And I think I should clarify that. I'm talking about the original Battlestar Galactica, originally being made as a movie, or originally being made as a 3-part episode or movie, whichever came first. I'm always confused on this point because I heard it one way and then I was contradicted. But it seems that they made the movie one way and then they made the TV show the other way. Go on.
Right. So, as I don't know, consideration for those who didn't see the movie, or the fact that they are basically recycling this. This is extended. In fact, the first episode was on what's his name? The Fire Shun
Rengoku.
Yeah. It's all about him and that stuff he was doing before he got on the train, which is well enough. And it's also the actual arc isn't gonna last all that long, unlike the Dragon Ball Super thing.
Yeah, I think it's only through the rest of this month, and then next month, and then they go to the actual start on December.
7 episodes.
Yeah.
And then they are moving to what I call is called like the Market Garden arc.
I thought it was the Entertainment District arc, is what they call it.
Yeah, it's something like that.
It's the Entertainment District arc.
Yeah. So it's probably worth watching the actual television adaptation of the arc, given that, it's not that long and there is some new stuff there. So
right. It's revised and extended, like I said.
Mm-hmm. It's probably not going to look as good as the actual movie because, we are talking, even if it is UFO table or UFO table, however you pronounce that.
Ufotable.
Yeah.
Or as we like to call it in the business, unaffordable.
More like tax dodgeable.
Huh?
They don't pay their taxes.
Oh, well, that's a whole separate problem, but they're usually known for going over budget and way over schedule.
I'm like, over budget maybe, but over schedule. They seem to be fairly reliable on this, like especially given a pandemic. Like, anyway, the point of order is, it's not going to look as good, though. It's going to look a far sight better than Dragon Ball Super's recycled arcs did.
Oh, well, that's a plus.
Well, it's because Dragon Ball Super was not very well planned in the beginning. Like, it's a whole thing, but there are many more series to get through here.
Didn't it also originally star a certain English voice actor who is suffering consequences as we speak?
I'm talking about the planning side, which Funimation had nothing to do with. I'm talking about what Toei did. Like they rushed the production basically, and they didn't have enough time to actually, produce very good results. Which is why a lot of the animation in the beginning arcs are bad, quite frankly. Like, anyway, Digimon is also returning, coming off the massive disappointment that was Adventure 2020.
Ghost Game is pretty good so far, though. Could show some promise.
Yeah, Digimon Ghost Game is actually stunningly good. Like, so far. Like, I think part of that is it's not fucking tethered to the legacy of adventure.
Yeah. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up, right?
You can always go down. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, you have a baseline.
I look what happened to Digimon Tamers. Like, and that was going down. Like once again, like I wasn't expecting Digimon Tamers to go down the route of cancel culture, but it did.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, that was like one writer, and I guess the studio okayed it.
Yeah, it's still an official performance, so yeah. You know, but thankfully that isn't what Ghost Game is about. It it is thematically appropriate for Halloween, but it looks like it's going to be, it's going to be a thing beyond that.
Yeah, it's a full year series.
Yeah, probably going to be at least 50, maybe 60. Like, it's kind of hard to tell with Toei Productions because they just kind of go until they don't. And unlike, say, Adventure or Dragon Quest Dai, like there's nothing to like. It's a completely new Digimon thing.
Yeah, and they haven't really done that in a while.
We'll give Adventure credit for reviving the Digimon brand enough where they can do something new,
Original, yeah.
New and interesting and original, and not have it be stuck in Japan. Nobody picked up Atmon, at least over here. Like, it is regrettable, but it is, it's like, let's see, other big series returning, Lupin the Third with Part 6. Technically started this past week, but didn't because this was a special episode 0 focusing on Jigen. This is because Jigen's longtime voice actor is retiring. And
which makes sense because he's fucking old.
Yeah. I think
You're talking about Richard Epcar?
No, I'm talking about the Japanese voice actor.
Oh.
Yeah. No, Richard Epcar
hasn't been dubbed yet.
I didn't think so. Last time I spoke to him, he wasn't retiring.
No, we're talking about the guy who voices him in Japanese, who's voiced him in Japanese since the first Lupin the Third anime in the, 70s?
Yeah. He is officially retiring as of this episode 0. So when the proper Lupin the Third Part 6 series starts, he will have a new voice actor. Or Seru, if you will. Like, not sure who's doing that because, like, honestly, the Seru thing, it's just not a thing I ever kept track of. I know
There's
people
no R in it.
Yeah. But, point is, I think he was like the last of the original voice cast to retire. I may be wrong about that. I'm not sure about Goemon. But, like, I know Lupin's voice actor got replaced in the 90s, for example. So, it is...
yes, he is the last one, I think.
That is what I thought, because, as mentioned, the original cast would be, if not dead, very old. So... wish him well, and hopefully, Lupin the Third Part 6. That's exceedingly hard to say. Numbers, does well. It's like I liked Part 4 on the individual level, but I thought its overarching plot was really fucking dumb. Like, even for Lupin, this was kind of really stupid. Lupin the Third Part 5 was much better in its overarching and mostly good with its legacy. Just like, let's say episode 0 I see as an apology for certain things that Lupin the Third Part 5 try to de-imply. That, Jigen and Lupin would not be a couple. That's silly. Why would you think that? It's been a thought since, for many decades, let's say. Anyway, moving on to more original work or adaptations, we've got Blue Period. Highlighting this one because this is the apparent grand experiment in terms of Netflix anime. And that is, it's airing weekly. Like, technically not the first anime to do so, depending on your region, the anime Violet Evergarden did do a weekly release schedule in certain territories. And I'm not including Japan in this because, in Japan they get the weekly broadcasts all the time because they're partnered with the, local committees. And that's a thing that's easier to do in Japan than internationally. But a big reason why Netflix waited to on the television anime isn't just because that's their business model. It is, but a lot of it has to do with dubbing. Like, Netflix currently does not do simul dubbing.
No.
No.
Mm-hmm.
That may change in the future, but right now, Blue Period is sub only. And I will note it. While it is weekly, it is running a week behind the current broadcast. But it's still basically, I don't know if Netflix is making a grand statement about if this is an experiment for weekly anime or if this is just something that they're going to do going forward on stuff that broadcasts on television. This does not apply to like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which they have actually secured the first broadcast right. Stone Ocean is going to be on Netflix first before it even broadcasts on Japanese television. Like, granted, apparently there's something going on there because they removed the monthly release schedule from their website. That's still planned for December. That's one of the stragglers that everyone's waiting on. The other Netflix anime that people are waiting for is Komi Can't Communicate, which I think is that's another weekly. So, they are, if nothing else, willing to experiment. And hopefully it takes, if only because it will finally stop people about complaining about it. Like, so many videos complaining about the Netflix jail. Like, and I suppose there's something to it. Like, I don't know. I never had much of a problem about it, but granted, some people might not wait for the official release. Let's say, it's always it's always a roll of the dice when it comes to release. When the thing is releasing weekly and it's not releasing weekly on your thing, like. Anyway, there's still plenty more anime that's being released, but I think that's a good representation of the highlights. Like, like I said, there's other stuff like the season started with the Heike story, which is the latest anime out of Science Seru. You might know them as the studio that did Devilman Crybaby and Keep Your Hands Off the Izuken more recently. Having watched it, it's good, but I don't like. You kind of have to be into Japanese history to appreciate this because the Heike story is a massive tone poem. Or something like that. Like it's this whole tale that goes back to the founding of the shogunate. That's basically what this is about. It's shift away from the emperor as the main political force and the start of the shogunate. There's all sorts of stuff here. Like for the spooky season, you might want to check out Roku-chan. Content warning, this is a shockingly horny series. I'm not joking. Like it has a lot of fan service shot. And if people find that jarring, I find it more jarring because, it's a high school girl, but that's just the thing that anime does.
Yeah, you just gotta shrug and just deal with it.
Or don't. That's why.
Or don't.
Yeah, that's why I put the warning out there first. But I'm like, people finding a horror thing leaning on, let's say, sexual exploitation. Like, how many slasher films did you not watch? I know it's not strictly speaking one of those, but a horror is no stranger to this kind of luridity.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, the manga tones it down. Haven't read that, so I can't speak. Just it is a thing to be considerate about. I guess the other big return is 86. Didn't watch that, so I don't really have any commentary there. For some reason, we're actually getting a hockey anime this year. I guess it was.
It was a matter of time.
Well, actually, this season. I guess it was their turn on the.
Look, if you keep spinning the sport anime roulette wheel, eventually you're going to come up with hockey.
Except no, because well, here's the thing. It's actually a. I'm not joking about any of this. It is a hockey idol embroidery club mashup.
See, that's just like when you spin on the first wheel, then you have to spin on a second wheel to see what the gimmick is, and like 60% of the slots on that are it's gay, but there are also a few other slots where it's other weird stuff.
Oh dear God!
It's roulette wheel. I think this is more like a Star Wheel from that game.
It's like Food Wars, where they're not sure if it's a cooking show or quasi porn.
Right, but definitely at least apparently they attached the idol thing because the hockey thing. Apparently the sport is that niche in Japan.
I mean, however you get it off the ground. I mean, hey.
Well, I mean, it was seriously some of the most surreal television I watched this year. And that is saying something, considering I watched the likes of Wonder Egg Priority, Odd Taxi, and Sunny Boy. To be on that level is quite a feat. Because
I don't even know. I mean, it's like sports. There are many sports popular in America that are kind of niche in Japan. Like, I mean, how big a deal is basketball? And yet we have a very long-running series dedicated to that.
A few, like, basketball was actually popularized by an anime in the 90s, Slam Dunk. But, okay,
also Yu Yu Hakusho. No, wait.
I mean, Slam Dunk is apparently the actual basketball anime that's cited for popularized sport in the country.
Yeah.
I don't think Pura Ore is going to do that for hockey because, well, it starts out with, like, being the team at the grand national stage, winning the big game, and then not even segueing, just going into an idol dance routine. It's nuts.
As you do.
Yeah, it's literally insane.
My sister did girls hockey in high school. I'll have to ask her if they had that part.
I'm like, were they coached by a failed figure skater?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? To be frank, there are weirder things.
Oh yeah, there are weirder things. I cited some of them previously. Like I said, I could go on. Apparently, running for the worst of the season is Tesla Note. I'm hearing the words X-Arm used in conjunction with this thing. Like, yeah, if you hear X-Arm, if you don't know what that is like kind of the gold standard right now for anime failure on a technical level.
When the art is
that's
physically painful to look at.
Right.
Not just physically painful, but it's painful to watch the animations. Like they build only like one model set. It's all there are videos detailing what went wrong on this production.
Yeah.
To that means your production values are pretty shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in more weirdness, we've got Irina the Vampire Cosmonaut. I'm like,
sure. That's a combination of two things, three things probably.
Well,
but at least two things.
Well, it's a combination of vampire, astronaut, and communism. Make it bad. No.
Sarcastic.
Yeah. Fena Pirate Princess is still running.
For another episode or two. Actually, another one episode. There's one left. The two-parter,
Yeah.
apparently.
I hear that Barrier Wars or whatever one where they already started selling mecha models for it actually started.
Right. And
That's the only thing I know about it.
Yeah. Warrior at the Borderline.
That's probably it.
Yeah. That's the one being made by the Gundam Build Fighters team, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Saw the
It's
first
Kyokai
episode.
Senki in Japanese, I think.
Yeah, the Border War or something like that. Like, yeah, I would give this one a pass, unless you're into nationalism. I'm not joking. Like, it's got.
Yeah, the summary does not look like something I'm excited about, but the robot designs look kind of neat.
Yeah, if you're looking for a mech show this season, I'd probably recommend Sakugan. That seems to be the highlights. There are quite a few of these shows, but a lot of them are fairly run-of-the-mill. Make that what you will. Like, got Shiki's Zakura and Rumble Granadol and Deep Insanity. And I'm not sure if that's an actual. No, that is a mecha show. Deep Insanity: The Lost Child. Anyway,
Well,
so that's kind of the season this season.
well,
Yeah.
well, gentlemen, I've hit my threshold of 3 errors consisting of right cause, wrong reason. So I think it's time to wrap up the show for tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, good talk. There was definitely a lot to cover there, but like I said, before I make any more technical errors for the right cause, I'm going to wrap it up there. So that's it for episode 20 of season 2 of Last Newsdesk on the Left. It's hard to believe we've actually made it this long.
Yeah.
Not much to say about the studio this week. We're working on 3D stuff for the Galahad film, and that's pretty much it. I've been running since my schedule has been somewhat irregular. I've been running off-stream reruns of Genshin Impact play. So, for those of you confused, Twitch does not actually have a scheduling system. So, even though this is new original content never before seen by my viewers, fans, the general public, etc., they are brand new content. So I do have a new one uploaded that I will probably be running on Thursday.
Is rerun Twitch's term?
Well, if you upload a video and then want to stream it, that because of their emphasis on live broadcasting, they call it a rerun. You can also schedule past broadcasts for a rerun. So that's what's confusing about it, is because people may assume that it was something that has already been run on the channel, and that is not the case. It's just sometimes I like to schedule stuff and then walk away. So just to be clear on that, these days when I run a rerun, it is new original content. So it is quote unquote live for the first time, where it was not previously. So I have a new Genshin Impact video. It's Venti's character story, and I just have to give a content warning. It is a tearjerker. So I will be running that on Thursday, sometime before the Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap broadcast, which I'm aiming for 6 p.m. Pacific time for that. So tomorrow you will see both a Genshin Impact replay of something that has not previously been seen, and then after that at 6 p.m. Pacific time you will see our next broadcast of The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap, Part 2.
Hopefully this Sunday you'll feel up to MS Saga.
Well, I can't miss that anymore because that's our highest rated show. We've been averaging about a 6.7 on that, with a peak at about 12 or 16, I think it was. So, pretty happy with those numbers. Everything else seems to have kind of fallen off, so a lot of questions. But our Legend of Zelda play did actually garner a 3.2, so can't complain about that much. All right, guys, that's our show for this week. So be sure to tune in next time. Like I said, tomorrow we got quite a bit of content coming your way, so be sure to tune in tomorrow. I'm not sure when the Genshin Impact one is going to run, but there will be a go live notification, so be sure to smash that follow button. And we are still trying to get subscriptions for helping the studio overall make more films and dedicate more time to actual streaming. So there is that. All right, but until next time, I'm your host, Mac Paladin. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, kids.
Get masked up and vaxxed up, y'all.